What are the best entry luxury SUVs for 2015? I'm Stephen Kay, Editorial Director at Bottom Line Publications, and today my guest is auto analyst Carl Brower, Kelley Blue Book Senior Director. The entry luxury SUV segment is exploding with choices, so which one deserves your hard-earned money? Bottom Line is here to help. Carl?
Hey, how's it going?
The vehicles aren't exploding, the choices are exploding.
So far, yes.
And before we start to talk about which vehicles you like in this segment, could you just define for us, please, when you talk about entry luxury, and we're talking about SUVs here, what exactly does that mean? Because there are many, many SUVs out there in all price ranges. So where do you place entry luxury?
Entry luxury is the lowest priced vehicles that will get you into an SUV, similar to the entry luxury sedan category. So this is your way to start driving an SUV that still has a premium badge on it. You're going to have to pay more than the equivalent volume selling mainstream brands. But just like the mainstream brands, this category is exploding too in terms of popularity, as you said, and volume, and everyone's jumping in. Jaguar is showing off a concept car already.
Jaguar SUV.
Jaguar SUV.
Okay.
Because they just see the money to be made here. Range Rover did the Evoque recently. Land Rover did the Range Rover Evoque.
With a very low, swoopy roof. Right.
That's a relatively new model, and of course Porsche just came in with the Macan. So we've got all these vehicles jumping in because just like in the mainstream volume brands, the non-premium brands, they see the sales potential.
Okay, so these are luxurious, maybe not the most luxurious, but they're luxurious cars. They're from a premium brand. They have the SUV profile that people like. They're not too big. We're talking about entry, so we're not going to get one of these in a large package. Think
CR-V with a premium badge as far as interior space. So still pretty small.
The Honda CR-V, which is ubiquitous on the roads, it's all over the place.
Yep.
That size.
Right.
And just more luxurious. So you mentioned the Porsche, I don't know if it's Macan, maybe you can straighten me out on that.
You know, I've heard it pronounced both ways, so I'm at a loss, and I'm probably getting it wrong no matter which way I say it.
Their corporate cousin is Volkswagen, and they came out with the Touareg, which nobody
knew, and also the Tiguan,
and
even the Cayenne, the bigger Porsche. I've seen people butcher that name because it's not the most obvious pronunciation when you just look at the word. You have to know that they're talking about, a pepper. I figure you call the Porsche dealer, and you start saying something that starts with an M and ends with an N, they'll figure out what you're looking after.
He'll be there for you.
Yeah.
Won't he? All right, so the Porsche Macan.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
You know, it's new. It's all new this year from Porsche. Again, their first jump into this small SUV category that they know will have money to be made. And they're going to do so well with this car, Steve. I mean, they are going to just score because the market's on fire, and the Cayenne has been such a success for them in the mid-size to large sizing, and it's more expensive. So this is a less expensive version. Everyone loves these Porsche SUVs, so you can get into a Porsche SUV, you get Porsche badging, and actually quite good driving dynamics despite the SUV design. And you are paying, you know, starting in the 40s and can get a nice one for in the 50s. People who want to buy a Porsche that's functional and can carry their family around for 50 grand roughly, there are going to be plenty of those.
Okay, so you mentioned Porsche badging, and that's what I want to ask you about, because badging, you know, in car history has a reputation for sometimes not being such a great thing. You take a lesser car, you put a better badge on it. Porsche is associated with Volkswagen. So is the Macan a real Porsche? I think that's the question.
Porsche is very aware of what you just said, and they certainly don't want to ever be criticized for that. They've done a very good job, first with the Cayenne and now with the Macan, of making it feel like a different vehicle, even if the basic platform started out with another corporate cousin, like the Audi Q5 in this case. The Macan drives extremely well, and it's got a very Porsche interior. It's funny, you get in the car and you see, you know, those white gauges, that pod cluster, those 3 pods with the tack right in the center. And you feel like you're in a Porsche. It's impressive. It's impressive how well they've done that. They've translated the Porsche experience into a small SUV.
And what about power-wise?
The quote-unquote cheapest one still has a lot of power. You don't get like a base engine that's not powerful in this vehicle. You start out with a powerful one, and then you go on up to the turbo, which is crazy power.
Just like the Turbo Cayenne is crazy power.
Exactly.
So,
you know, unnecessarily fast SUV, which of course people who have that kind of money to spend, that's what they're looking for, an unnecessarily fast utility vehicle.
Okay. Your second choice in this segment is very interesting, and that comes from Acura.
Yeah, and this is where you really get value. The reason I picked the Porsche because it's a very fun to drive vehicle, and it's not, you know, overpriced, honestly. But if you're really looking for some solid value, the Acura RDX is just a great great vehicle. Very refined, very luxurious, very powerful. I think it looks good, and that's been an issue for Acura in the past. They've had, some people called them the chrome beak. They had a little too aggressive styling in the grille area. But this car, I think, it puts it all together really well. Very functional space too. Again, this car springs from the same platform that the CR-V comes from, and both of those cars can make a real claim to interior functionality and space despite a relatively small exterior. But I think even as much as the CR-V sells well and is a well-done mainstream SUV, I think the Acura version is a better execution in terms of overall value and what you pay and what you get. They're just a great vehicle.
So when you walk up to an Acura, this Acura, versus walking up to a Honda CR-V, with which it shares some attributes, do you just get that luxury feel, the way it looks, the way things are laid out, the quality? It definitely says luxury.
Yeah, it's refined, it's quiet, it drives extremely well, and it's got all the power you'd ever need. You put it all together and you've got this luxury experience, but price-wise, you're going to get a lot of value too.
How much?
I think you can get them in the mid to high 30s.
Mid to high 30s.
Yeah.
And Macan, again,
I
into
think
the
you've
50s.
got to get into the 40s before you get even the cheapest one, because
Yeah.
I think it's like 48 base, because even the base one, it's a Macan S, it's called. There's no like non-S version of the Macan, which is typically their kind of elevation in terms of hierarchy. There probably is in Europe, but in America the cheapest version still has a powerful 6-cylinder engine, and it starts at like 48.
Okay, so two solid choices in this segment, Porsche Macan, Acura RDX.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Carl.
Yeah, great talking to you.